Hey guys, today I'm going to show you how I made my Ahsoka Tano costume. Before I get into the making of the costume, I wanted to mention that I do have a makeup tutorial and Leku tutorial already posted on my channel, and I will add links to them in the description, so feel free to go check those out. Now let's get on with the rest of the video. I'm going to start by making the armor. I have the patterns I made and used for the armor posted in my description. You can download them and print them at home on a regular printer. I traced the paper patterns onto craft foam, cut them out, then glued the pieces onto a sheet of poster board. Then I cut out all the pieces. After I cut out the pieces, I folded some of them to form them in the right shape. Then I went over the foam with a heat gun to smooth out the foam. Then I glued on another layer of foam for the detailing. I also add details by using an X-Acto knife to make indentations in the foam. Then I glue these three pieces together. Here are all the armor pieces finished. I seal all the pieces with a coat of Mod Podge, then I spray paint it in a gunmetal color. After the spray paint is dry, I use acrylic craft paint to add detailing. I use black paint to add shadowing and dimension to the armor. Then I use this dark turquoise color to match the armor in the show. When it's dry, I use the black paint again to darken indentations. And I add scrapes to the armor. And some blotches to make it look weathered and dirty. Then I use silver paint to make it look like the paint has been scratched or scraped off, exposing the metal underneath. I repeat this process on the rest of the armor and add other details wherever they are needed. For the hand armor, I just hot glued them to thick gloves. Make sure you use something between your gloves and your hand to prevent burning. I got these shoes from the thrift shop and painted them to match the ones in the show more. They are not 100% accurate, but they work great and you hardly see them anyway. I also glue the foot armor onto them. I glued on elastic bands to the armor and they just slide on. Now that the armor is done, I'm going to show you how I make the pants. I started by using this pattern. Then I modified it a little bit by sewing the middle seam much lower. Once the pants were sewn, I folded and pinned the pleats. Then I finished it with an elastic band around the waist. Here are the pants all sewn together. I also added elastic bands around the bottom of the pants to hug my calves. I also dyed them darker, but I'll show you that a little later. Now I'm going to show you how I made the shirt. I used this pattern, but modified it by using the base of C and the collar of B. Then I used the same pattern to make extra panels on the front that I added to the shirt to look like a vest. I pinned on the pieces as you can see here and sewed them on. It makes it way easier to put everything on as one piece. I trace a line with chalk to mark where I need to add Velcro. And this is the shirt all finished, and it's so simple to put on. I had trouble finding fabrics that had nice patterns and also felt nice, so I went to the thrift shop and found some large men's shirts that worked perfectly. I needed to make a sash, so I just cut a basic shape, doubled it, and sewed it together, and added some Velcro on the back. There are also some panels hanging around her waist. They are thicker, so I used some padding and sandwiched it in between fabric. Then I trace it and cut it all together. And I flip the fabric and re-sandwich it and sew it together around the edges. Then I add bias tape along the edges to finish it. I added some chalk marks to sew over and add some stitching details. Here it is all finished. Now I'm dyeing the fabric with Rit dye in the shade Graphite to make it all match. It was my first time ever dyeing fabric, so I just followed the instructions on the bottle and looked up some videos on YouTube to make sure I did it right. I did modify how much dye I used depending on the color and type of fabric I was dyeing. Then I rinsed off the fabric until the water ran clear, and I let it all dry. Now I'm making the belt. The belt buckle pattern is part of the armor set. I will add a link to it in the description. I traced it onto craft foam. I cut out the pieces and glued them together. Then I used an X-Acto knife to make detail indentations and a heat gun to make them more prominent. Then I paint it silver. For the belt, I sew a strip of vinyl and paint it to match the color I need. And I run a light beige stitch along the edge of it. Here's the buckle painted silver, and I'm going to apply contact cement in a ventilated area to the back of the buckle and on the belt. Then I let it dry. While I let it dry, I used chalk to mark where I need to add strips of fabric. I used bias tape for the strips and hot glued them down around the sides of the buckle. Since the contact cement is dry, I press down the buckle. Then I pin down the straps in a crisscross pattern. Then I sew it all down. I also add little studs with dots of hot glue and metallic paint. I had trouble finding long rectangle beads, so I use these plastic ones and put them on a pipe cleaner so I can spray paint them black. When they are dry, I take them off the pipe cleaner. And then I begin stringing the beads, trying to match the strand in the show. When I'm done, I drape the beads on the belt. And this is what it looks like. Again, I use another thrifted shirt because the stretchy textured fabric was perfect. I cut some sleeve shapes that fit my arm. Then I draw on 4 diamond shapes with chalk and cut them open. Then I cut a bunch of strips of fabric and place them in a crisscross pattern, then cut off the edges. After I'm done laying them all down, I weave them through each other. Then I pin them all down, and I sew down the strips of fabric and sew the sleeves together inside out. And that's pretty much it. I I also made this quick undershirt in an orange color that matches Ahsoka's alien skin tone, so I didn't have to apply body paint every time I wore this costume. I hope you guys found this tutorial helpful. If you are making your own Ahsoka Tano cosplay, I hope this video gave you a better idea of how to approach it or made it less intimidating. Or maybe you learned some tips you can apply towards a different cosplay. I'll be adding a bunch of helpful links in the description. I also have lots of other cosplay makeup and costume tutorials on my channel, so feel free to go check those out. Thank you so much for watching, guys. Bye!